Perfect. Recording started. Yeah, just to connect to what you just said, like we were intentional about doing something fun after the due diligence for team building, all that stuff. I think that's super important. And we didn't have a ton of time left to do that because we went to the parks like for 6-7 hours. I mean, we got there in the morning. We met the broker at 7 a.m. Had breakfast. So you get to know him in person, and then drove to Cairo, Georgia. That was like a 2.5 something hours drive.
Yeah.
Was it? No, 3.5, wasn't it? Yeah, well, 3.5. We were like 11:30 or so we arrived, and then like no stop, basically. Just talked to the seller, went from park to park, and then we went back to the parks again. Then we forgot to actually count one of the units in the park. I had to go back to that park again and count it again and do drone shots everywhere. So, and then we were done like at 6 or so, 6:30, and then we drove to Tallahassee for a couple hours of fun. I kind of woke up perfectly, I believe. That was actually pretty good. It was well balanced.
So just to give the listeners of yours a reminder, this week we performed due diligence walkthrough at a park in Cairo, Georgia. And you spell it like Cairo, Egypt, but they pronounce it as Cairo, Georgia. And they're really good at correcting you if you say Cairo. It's all over the town. But yes, it's a 3-park portfolio, 90 lots overall. And Matthias and we met up in Atlanta. I flew out there, and he picked me up, and then we drove down to Cairo. The seller, super awesome guy, very transparent, very down to earth. I wish every seller was like that, right? Very transparent, and his property manager was outstanding as well. So it was good that we were able to hang out. We went out to lunch. And we went to the family business because they also own a restaurant in town. So it was a really good experience. So the park, we perform due diligence, and it's a very important process to go out there and look at the properties, right? Because many times the numbers look good on paper, but we have to make sure that we confirm what we're looking at on the spreadsheet. Right. Many times that's not the case. Right. And that's why we do what we do. But yeah, this was a really good trip. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to the next steps.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a good summary. Thanks, Vinny. The seller was really refreshing. That was really good. You have a lot of sellers either very secretive and try to hide things. So he was exactly the opposite. He was very genuine and transparent. The property manager was walking with us. He said something and she was like, nope, that's not right. This is this number. He's like, oh yeah, okay. Gotcha. He was not trying to hide. It was more like, oh, me being silly. I couldn't remember because he has so much real estate. He cannot keep it all in his mind. I get it. But he was very open about it. Sometimes you see sellers that try to play you and try to like hide things and smoke in the mirrors. It was completely opposite. He put all the cards on the table, which was really refreshing. And you felt like you're actually building rapport with him.
Yes.
And he was texting us. I was texting you in our group text like all day, really making jokes and stuff like that. That's pretty cool for like relationship building. It's good, not to be transactional, also be, in this business to build relationships, between sellers and buyers. It's actually pretty good. And I didn't feel the pressure with that seller that he needs to sell at all. Many times I'll walk on-site due diligence, and the seller is like, oh yeah, how is capital raising going? You think we're going to close on time? Do we have to extend DD? With him, nothing. Was just like, let me know if you need something. You have any questions, anything else I can answer? You want to drive here? I can show you this. I can show you that. It was really, really open and no pushy at all. You can tell he's successful in his business. He doesn't need that money, 2 weeks earlier. If it's a little bit delayed, a couple of weeks, whatever, he doesn't care. Which is good. That keeps the pressure off the deal. And we can actually make a deal that works for both sides, which then we have a win-win situation. And then everybody's happy. Nobody feels screwed over. That's what we love about this business. We can actually make deals happen that everybody wins. The tenants, the seller, the buyer. I think that's ultra important. And I think this is one of those deals where we can achieve that. And I think there's absolutely no red flags that we've seen so far. There's some question marks still. I mean, still with in DD timeframe, due diligence timeframe. I think next Friday, so 7 days from now, it's technically expiring, but this is all negotiable, right? So you can always say, hey, I need another week. And I think we have like less than a handful of questions for him still. But I reran like version 2 of our underwriting, and everything checks out pretty well. We might
Yeah.
have to look at how much road paving will cost, because we didn't have much information in the beginning about what needs to be paved, but now we do. And I think this is actually a great opportunity. I think that will actually increase the value in compressing the cap rate even further if we pave those roads, because some of the parks have like 90% of them are brand new homes almost. They're only a couple years old, and this will look like a Class A park once you have those roads paved. So massive opportunity. And then on top of that, we have under market rents, which is low hanging fruit. It's amazing.
Absolutely. So out of the 3 parks, and I think they're all different, right? The first park, it's a beautiful park. And keep in mind, the portfolio has a good balance of tenant-owned homes and park-owned homes. The first park is a beautiful park. There's a lot of land. The homes have good separation between one another, right? It does not feel like a mobile home park. The second park has mostly newer homes. Most of those homes he brought in 2017. And there are only about 4 homes that are older. However, they are tenant-owned homes, right? And the last park, that one's the one that needs most work. It's mostly park-owned homes. But what was surprising is that it comes with a lot of land, right? On the side, he said something about 20 acres. So we have to look at the map and confirm the numbers. So even though that may not be part of our business plan, it could be an outstanding position to be for an exit strategy, right? Because whoever buys it from us, if we purchase it, could have plans for that land, right? Going back to looking at the numbers initially and making sure everything adds up, we didn't have any insight into how the roads looked. We had some pictures from Google Maps and that kind of thing, but we didn't really know. And then when we got there, we noticed that all parks, the roads need work, right? So that's something that we learned, and that's why we had to go back and play with the numbers again to see if it still makes sense, right? So that's part of the value add play for this portfolio.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that was kind of eye-opening that, many times you cannot really see what needs to be done until you're actually on site. Even like Google Street View or from Google Maps satellite picture, you can see how big those potholes are and if there are any. But we had our F-150 almost bottoming out in some parts of the park. So we know, okay, there's a problem right there. I mean, I had to go like 1 mile per hour through this park in some of the corners. So that means something. So yeah, I mean, the seller acknowledged that, right? So in that second park, they actually actively just did like repaved it, but not paving, but they actually put new gravel and rock down and just kick the can down the road. Honestly, he said that the same way, like we just kicking the can down the road, just make it, get rid of the potholes and just put some gravel and rock on this and then just leave it be. And it's going to be good for 2 or 3 years. I mean, it worked so far, but I think if you pave that road, it's going to make that park pop for both of them. And the other one is really, really pretty with the vegetation. There are long pine trees, the Georgia pine trees, beautiful. Yeah. Like all the grass is very lush and green already, even though we're in the end of March, because it's southern Georgia, almost Florida down there. So it's a really nice climate, which is pretty good, but still far away from the coast enough that there's not much of a hurricane risk. Of course, they have impact if a big storm comes through, obviously. But yeah, I mean, in general, really, really solid park. I left with a good gut feeling. Gut feeling tells you a lot. The numbers are one thing for sure, but us humans have, very strong gut feeling. Senses or instincts that we have to rely on. And this one here, and some other parks, I just left. I didn't know what it was. It just rubbed me wrong. I didn't want to do the deals, and we all agreed and backed out. This is not one of them. This one feels like there's a deal that can be made here. And so there's some major upside there. And the town is smaller, but not very small. It's like over 10,000 people, and it's been growing for the last, 50, 60, 70 years. It's been growing like 5-6% every census. So it's very solid, growing market. The county is like 22, 23,000 people and growing as well. It's in between Bainbridge, Georgia, and Thomasville. Both of them are growing too.
Yes.
There's a lot of business there as well. And it's close to Tallahassee, which is just, an exploding market. And they're growing like double digits every census.
Yeah. It's 45 minutes away from Tallahassee?
Yeah, exactly. Less than 45 minutes. It's really good. So it's really nicely located where it is. And it's still, again, far away enough from the coast that like hurricane or like any storm surge or whatever is not really a big factor. It's mainly wind and stuff like that. But I mean, they have been hit by hurricanes before, and they had power outages. This is what the seller said. And of course, we have those in other areas too. I have in my area. I'm 3 hours away from the coast, so that happens. But in general, I mean, really happy with the walkthrough. I think we gained a lot of knowledge about the deal. Learned a lot too, as a different market, and to see the seller is very well connected in the area, which is great too. And he was very open about what the area does wrong and what they do right. But also brings opportunity. They see the other towns around them grow even faster than them, which creates some positive competition in the area between the towns, which I think can help everybody, if that makes sense, right? I mean, we had all the major retailers in Cairo, Georgia. You look on the numbers, it's a small town, but you go in there, they have a big Chevy dealership, they have Taco Bell, Hardee's, Starbucks out there, Walmart Supercenter, all in that town, and all the parks are just literally around all the retailers. All parks are like 10 minutes away from the major retailers. So it's really good. Clean downtown, there was a lot of traffic too. I mean, I wasn't dead at all. It was very lively.
Yeah. It was a lively city.
Definitely. So I'm really feel good about it. I've, sometimes you have to sleep a night over it or two, after, you've gone through a lot of information and, all your senses have been activated. But now looking back at all the pictures and stuff, I think this is a good deal. We just have to make sure the final numbers work out. We're not far off, like with the number we have it on the contract with. And I think the seller said, if we need to, we can get creative, if needed. I think there's definitely an avenue to get a deal done. So I'm super stoked about this deal.
Yeah, keep in mind, we have traveled to deals, right? And then once we start walking, we get some red flags pulled with red, and we find other red flags. And, that's why we do this, right? That's why we take the time and travel to these places to make sure everything checks out. Because we want to, protect investors, right? That's the number one goal. We want to make sure that we can buy something that we can execute the business plan to and give the investors the expected returns that we project, right? So that's the number one goal and number one reason why we travel to these mobile home parks. But yeah, this one felt natural. This felt good. It wasn't rushed. There was no pressure, right? It just feels really good. Everything kind of checked out. There were some things like the roads that we wanted to see. They do need work, and that's why we had to go back and tweak some numbers, and everything still checks out, right? So, yeah. I'm really excited too.
Yeah, it's a really good one. And we backed out of a deal early this year because it was quite the opposite. Like, talking to the sellers seemed very rigid. They seemed very close. They seemed almost annoyed by any question we asked. They refused documentation to give out, and we asked for different documentation to bypass that, to accommodate them, and then they refused that too. And then
the financials were off.
Exactly. And that was the thing. Like, they said, we're going to have this as financials. This is our income. And that dropped 50%, then another 50%. We went from $400,000 income to $200,000 on that other deal. That's why we said, okay, we have to cut this off. We're not going to gamble with investors' money. And this deal is actually quite the opposite. When we first underwrote this, we didn't have much financial information, just like screenshots from the broker, because, the broker is just like cold calling park owners, right? So this is not like a listed property. So there's very limited information sometimes. So when I first underwrote this, I had certain screenshots of PDFs, so like PDF snippets from financials, and I used that and kind of had to build my own T12. And then they actually bought a park, the third one, in June last year. And then they don't have that park for a whole year yet. So what I basically worked on, I just saw the totals of the last couple of months. I had to do my own T12, but they didn't have financials for a whole year of that third park. So actually, if you look at the numbers now, it actually makes much more income than initially anticipated, which is the exact opposite of the other park we backed out of, or the other deal. This one makes more money than expected, actually, by quite a lot, actually. Like in the beginning, before they're only making like 300-something thousand, 330 a year. They actually have 400 right now, almost like 388 or 391 or something like that. So they make a lot more money. So our basis is much higher, which is really good. So again, there's a lot of park-owned homes there. Almost like a 50-50 ratio, but all those are pretty new. They either newly built, and the seller is pretty savvy on building their own stick-built homes, like tiny homes, and I put them on those, which I think is like a great thing to do. I think a lot of more people in the future will do this. And he extended the offer that we can buy those stick-built tiny homes from him going forward, because he's local and we can buy it from him, and that's like half the cost of a 2-1 mobile home. You can buy from Clayton, Fleetwood, whatever. There's a good opportunity, and in those smaller markets, you need affordable housing. So I think this could be like a good deal where the seller and buyer wins, and then even after the deal is done, after the transaction is closed, we can still keep winning together by like he helps us infilling. Well, he can sell those homes because he builds them in house, if you will, because he does construction, all that stuff. So I think this could be a beautiful synergy. Yeah, it could be a beautiful synergy.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm sure the seller is also looking forward to working with us.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the if you had one takeaway from this one trip, what would it be?
One takeaway: don't underestimate small towns, because this is a smaller town, but I think this is a little bit of a powerhouse. And then especially in those markets, mobile home parks thrive because a lot of people need affordable housing. I think the demand is super high. They didn't have a single home empty. Like, they have vacant lots, but every single home, no matter what condition, was occupied. That is a big takeaway. And I think that speaks for small markets big time. I'm not going to sit here and say, go into those, 500 people towns, whatever. But maybe you can, if you live there and you can run a small park there. There's always different variables to consider. But I think on this one, the big one really is to be aware of, like, if there's like a town like this that's 10,000 plus people, the county has 20,000, and it's close to really bigger markets too. And some people move, like the seller said, they move from Tallahassee to Cairo because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
You don't have the people necessarily like moving there for necessarily only employment. They have people moving there because other markets around them get too expensive, and they flee to those smaller markets, which then drives, of course, the population growth up and helps our deal, in this case, tremendously. So that everything was occupied was a really, really good sign. Like, they keep it all fully occupied. Normally on-site due diligence, you're walking all the vacant homes. There were none. And in other deals, we have to walk like 20, 30 homes because half the park is empty. And that's usually either very badly managed, an opportunity, but sometimes it's just a sign of the market being not really a good market for like park on homes, for example, or just like for mobile homes in general. But this one was the opposite. That was my takeaway. How about you, Vinny?
There's a critical need for affordable housing, right? And being 45 minutes from Tallahassee, that's not that far, right?
Yeah.
Not that far. I mean, I'm from Providence, and people commute to Boston, right? And that's about 45 minutes, right? So it's not that far. For me, the takeaway is the smooth process, right? Everything was smooth. Like you said, all the homes are occupied. That's an outstanding sign, right? And how good it feels to go into a transaction like that. Right. So that's a really good sign.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, the vacant lots were there, but I think they never touched them because they've just been always vacant lots. And I think that's an opportunity to actually infill them as well. Some of them have like, bushes growing over them. You have to kind of get the landscaping, up to par again and stuff like that. And but that's low hanging fruit too. So we didn't even underwrite in the beginning to fill the vacant lots because, again, smaller town, we didn't know the market as well yet because there was an off-market opportunity that was brought to us. We were like, maybe not, maybe yes. And then as we were digging deeper, we saw it's a good opportunity. That's why we, in the beginning, never underwrite like infill. We don't know the market, and it's a smaller market. But in this case, I feel extremely comfortable to actually do infill in this park because it shows that, all the homes they have, no matter how old they have homes there from the 70s up to like 2017 or newer. They're all occupied. I think that shows that infill is definitely possible there. I wouldn't do like a heavy infill deal necessarily. If you need to fill like 50 homes in like 5 years, that's too much for a market of that size. But we talk about 9 here. I think 9 over 5 years, you can at least get half of them done or a little more. From what I can gather from the seller, they got actually, whenever they have a vacancy, they get it filled up immediately. Yeah, probably within a couple weeks or less. So strong sign of a really strong market. And again, the town was very lively, very alive. A lot of people there. So I think right now the underwriting doesn't show the infill, but I think they can just make the deal even sweeter if we actually decide to do it. Once we get out of due diligence. So that's what I'm working on right now, just to do like a version 2, version 3 of the underwriting and see what kind of business plan makes the most sense at this point.
Yeah.
Just right now, I just do like the version 2 I've been working on. The underwriting is basically just looking at, okay, where are we right now with what the rent will show, what we are seeing on site. We counted the homes and, and checks out and everything. And then with the lot rents that they're telling us and what we're seeing and all that stuff. And then confirming vacancies and everything. So just to make sure we have that baseline, the foundation set, and now we can build, and now we can see, okay, we really don't have to put any money into homes because they're occupied. Great. Checkbox number 1. Checkbox number 2 is, okay, are those lot rents correct? Is the average right there? There was a lot of question marks there. They've been solved. I ran the numbers this morning. Now everything checks out really good. So now we can actually look at, okay, do we really want to maybe infill? And then just do like a version 3 and see what that business plan looks like from there. And then how do we infill? Are we going to buy the homes from the seller? Are we just going to buy our own mobile homes? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different mechanisms here. And I see a lot of potential buying the homes from the seller and he builds them around the corner. I mean, you don't have to spend $6,000-$7,000 to move a mobile home down there. Yeah, a lot cheaper. So setup costs will be cheaper. Acquisition costs will be cheaper. And you can rent them out easily. He said like, $700-$800 a month, and building those homes all in like $40,000. I mean, it's like the 2% rule that hasn't existed since 2010. A 1%, the 2% rule in residential real estate. So if you look at this as like a single unit, of course, it's a commercial deal. But this is pretty strong. So it's a quick ROI. I know I'm geeking out here on numbers right now, but I'm really excited about it. I see a lot of avenues how we can make this thing work really well. I'm excited about this one.
So what you're saying is that the puzzle pieces are coming together.
Yes.
Right.
I do.
And now you're really talking about how we can put the cherry on top with the extras in terms of planning out the business plan, right?
Correct. Yeah. Either you do on-site due diligence and then you leave and you're just gonna say, that's how the cookie crumbles, like Jim Carrey says in Bruce Almighty movie. Or you walk away and say, okay, now the puzzle piece is coming together, and now you see more opportunity.
Right.
I think this one is definitely the latter one, where you definitely see more opportunity for sure. There's still some question marks still we have to figure out, and sometimes you don't really figure them out until you're actually operating it. You just have to do calculated risk, but there's no major risk on this deal. There's nothing on this deal I would say, if this falls apart or whatever, that question mark's not resolved, the deal will fall apart. No, every deal has a little bit of a danger, but this one doesn't have really any danger in my eyes. I just have a couple of things we have to figure out before we operate it. Just like the community manager setup they have right now with that third community, that third mobile home park. So just have to see how that's been handled. That they have an arrangement with that person, how they do the income and expenses and stuff. That's not what we do usually and won't do in the future. So you have to kind of restructure that just because it's different, Yeah. But that actually has major upside because I feel like the community manager makes a lot of money that way. And for the seller, it's a win-win because for them it's hands off. So, but if
that's for that one particular park, right?
Just that one park, correct?
Yeah,
the other ones are the other two run exactly where we run parks, but the third one was more like they added that one on to the other two parks, and for them it was like a very easy arrangement to the community manager to say, hey, just give me this much money every month. Right. If it brings them more, you keep the change, and then but you're gonna do all the repairs and all that stuff. So it's not usually how we do things, and we won't do it that way.
Correct.
That's something I understand why the seller did it. Don't get me wrong, because for them, they have $50 million of real estate. They have a bunch of multifamily and this and that industrial stuff. Do construction here and there. They have other problems. For them, it was an easy thing, and it's truly passive income, for them. And I was joking about it. He found passive income. There it is. How can it be more passive than that? But we're not gonna run it that way. We want to have a thing on the pulse. We want to see the exact expenses, and you have to unravel that, which. It's easy math, and we just see how many lots are in there, right? And I ran the numbers this morning. You can see how much money actually can make. And the community manager got a pretty sweet deal on this one because he cashed in a lot of money, obviously. But it made sense for the seller again because there's less work for him. Yeah.
And just want to clarify that we're not done, right? We still have another week of due diligence, and we pull a new thread on some things that we're looking at. That doesn't mean that we're done and we're closing. No, it means that everything's checking out and it's looking good and we're excited, right? And we're moving forward as of right now. But anything can happen, right? Between now and next Friday.
Totally. And then even if you have more questions, I mean, it's not unusual just to extend DD. I just say we need another week or two. and then you can negotiate. Then we can cut the closing shorter to meet the same closing date, for example. I mean, everything is up for negotiation, or extend the whole thing by 2 weeks. I don't think the seller cares. They're not under pressure to sell it. He said they have the money allocated for some multifamily project. I'm sure he wants to have it eventually, but if it's 2 weeks later, I don't think he would care. Do we want to go that route? We don't have to. No, we want to stay on track with everything. But I mean, again, if there's any question marks still open, I think we will be fine with not extending it, obviously. But it depends on how the answers will come through from our questions, the remaining questions. But again, there's less than a handful, and none of them are deal breakers. None of them are. It's just clarification questions at this point. None of them are deal breakers. So the big thing is that the financials have to check out. We did an income statement audit and audit that with the bank statements. And we have a veteran on the team that he is a CMA and he has 18 years of accounting experience. He has his own accounting firm. He does fractional CFO. This is his role that he's doing with his own firm. So he spent a long time going through those financial statements and bank statements and everything and reconcile everything. He was actually sitting down with the seller's CFO, and they were high-fiving all day, like the seller said. And so yeah, that's good. I mean, that's a really good sign that this checked out. So yeah, I think we are pretty confident, very high chance that we're going to close this deal in any shape or form, however that looks like. I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, because it sounds like the seller is willing to work with us no matter what. He wants to sell it to us. That's the feeling I got.
Yeah, exactly. And look, we already been 45 days into the deal, and he doesn't want to restart. We don't want to just say, oh yeah, we wasted a bunch of time now and we don't buy a deal. Let's make a deal somehow, even if it's just $100,000 less in the end for him, whatever. Or do some other arrangement. Maybe meet the same purchase price, but let's do some seller carry. You carry some debt for us for a lower interest rate, so it's easier for us, to raise more money on like the road work, for example. So it's less capex. There's more capex than expected, but there's less capital outlay. I'm trying to say. I think that's the big difference. So there's some triggers and levers, that we can pull to make that deal sweeter for everybody. So in the end, he would still get the same money in a sense, and we get a deal that we need less capital outlay if he can do some seller carry if needed. Again, so yeah, I think feeling on the right track. I think everybody's gears are turning right now in their minds, among the whole team. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with everything.
Yeah, me too. That's
Sweet.
good. That's a good summary.
That's a good summary. Yeah. Let me turn our recording off.
Oh wait,